Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tex Messages, episode 38. We're broadcasting out of Elk River, Minnesota, which is probably about 20 miles south of Princeton, Minnesota, and about 35 miles south of Dalbo, Minnesota. Most likely you've probably heard of North Branch, which is probably about 45 minutes northeast of here. So we're very centrally located, ladies and gentlemen. And it looks like temperature's got pretty close to 90 degrees out, and it's probably about that right now. I mean, it's not really an ideal day to wear a suit, but you gotta do what you gotta do to make America great again. I mean, America wasn't made great by a bunch of guys in swim trunks. It was made great by guys in reflector vests, guys and gals with hard hat, with those little spotlights on their hat, with steel toe boots, with gloves on, and just people doing hard work and being morally upstanding and all that good fun stuff. So I mean, that's certainly what we need to make America great again, and to make yourself great again as well, ladies and gentlemen. Last couple of days have been a bit of they've been a little busy trying to chase the weather, because here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. About a week ago I planted probably 200 plants altogether: broccoli, cauliflower, a couple peppers, eggplant, kale, and rutabaga. Rutabaga is like a potato. It's more shaped like a turnip. It's like a giant turnip, but it's kind of like a potato. Grows underground. I don't know if it's considered a legume or what it is. I mean, it's pretty delicious, so that's the most important thing. So I decided to, that was from the guy up in the Malacca greenhouse guy. And plants are pretty affordable, $1 a pop, so can't really go wrong there. He had some acorn squash as well, which he just set it out that day, so it still requires time to grow and get bigger and to make itself great again. So yeah, that's currently growing indoors. Then there's another 200 starter plants that have just sprouted, so just stick them in front of a window and try to keep them watered, basically. Because those small planter pots, those dry up pretty quick. So yeah, you pretty much have to water them a lot and then just leave them in the sun. Otherwise they'll get moldy if you water them too much, and if you water them too little, then they get dry. So it's quite a balancing act to play there. You know, it's like if you're playing alligator tightrope. If you go too far from one side to the other, you're probably going to fall into the alligator pit. And that's the same with growing plants. You don't want too wet or too dry, ladies and gentlemen. It's just perfect. You know, just if it's moldy, well, if it's moldy, then you're probably screwed. You know, you got to start over or take out the dirt and put in new dirt, a new seed or something. But if not, then, and if it looks like it's starting to dry up, then just pour some water on it, and that should alleviate any of the deleterious symptoms. So with that being said, one thing that we've had a problem with in society is there's 220 cases of nightmare bacteria with antibiotic resistant genes in 27 states. Now maybe I talked about this before, but you definitely have to be skeptical, because some of this stuff is fear mongering to create jobs for some type of medical or pharmaceutical industry, to say this antibiotic is better than the other because it can combat this super bug. So I mean, you think antibiotic, you could just make one formula and just stick with that for a long time. Like honey, for example, it has natural antibiotic properties in it, or silver apparently has, and apple cider vinegar might. There's probably some other things too. Alcohol might, or maybe alcohol. Well, alcohol is a good thing to clear your RO system, so yeah, it probably does have antibacterial and bleach. Yeah, apparently there's nightmare bacteria that So it's probably not even bacteria in the traditional sense. They just will call it bacteria because there's no other classification for it. Sort of like cancers. Pretty much every cancer is just grouped up into one name, more or less. You know, like blood cancer, skin cancer, colon cancer, face cancer, hair cancer, fingernail cancer. It's pretty much just a wide encompassing name for many ailments that may not always be easily distinguishable. I mean, if there's just random growths throughout your body, then it's just considered cancer. In all reality, the growths could be trying to correct some, or attack some invading force, or bacteria, or whatever, or fungus, maybe the HIV virus, some kind of zombie parasite. Like if a zombie parasite army attacks your blood, then the red blood cells and the white blood cells will try to, and antibodies will try to eradicate it. What they'll do is they'll encapsulate it, and then your body will have to try to remove that encapsulation, but it takes a while. You know, like a staph infection, it just turns into a big ball, and then you gotta cut it off, and it's just some really hard calcified part. So I mean, that's probably before they understood bacteria infections, that they probably just called that cancer too. You know, it's just one of them words that's used a lot. Sort of like let's see here. Well, like if you use a word to describe fish, there's lots of different kinds of fish, but you just say fish to it. Or just anything that swims in the water with a fin. Now, like mammal. Mammal is a classification of a lot of creatures that have a heart and lungs and brain and all that stuff. So it's if you call something a mammal, you're not really pinpointing what it is. It's just, yeah, this is a mammal, but there's no further elaboration of what it could be. So it leaves a little bit to be desired there. As far as diseases go, studying the human body is a pretty complicated ordeal, and the medical professionals, they do a good job, especially the nurses. The nurses do an outstanding job. Nurses are probably some of the most morally upstanding, hardworking men and women of America. Most of them are women, obviously. You probably prefer a woman nurse just because they have that maternal instinct and care, and actually may care about people. Now that's not to say that, there's always a few bad apples, but one of the biggest challenges is just to not allow the bad apples to spoil the bunch, because there might be some pediatric nurse that for some weird deranged reason killed a couple hundred kids. So you can't just let that one person be a black eye to the industry as a whole, because 99.9% of people that get into nursing they mean well. Now, if you talk about politics or public servants, not really entirely sure if 99% of them mean well. Of course they put on a cute face and everything, but they're probably one of the two-faced people. Most of the times occasionally there are people that do want to get into public service, but most of the time they're just appointed by some type of lobbyist or special interest, or some shadow government, whatever the case may be. Yeah, I mean, it's sad, but it's just the reality of how public leadership works in today's society, ladies and gentlemen. Which is, that's not to say that we completely should give up on government, because, there are a few things I guess it does that's good. It's kind of cool to have roads and trains and that kind of thing. And if they were privatized, maybe it would work too, but it's hard to say. Back in the good old days, maybe not good old, this was probably before America was great. See, America has been through cycles of being great again and not so great. In the days of the robber barons, you just have a few guys that pretty much owned everything. And that's kind of how it is today. Just a few people kind of own everything. You know, the Federal Reserve, for example. Those individuals that publicly own, or the private owners of the Federal Reserve, they can pretty much, they pretty much have an open check to do whatever it is they please. So they can pay off news organizations, or they can pay off schools, universities to fund a bunch of bogus studies, and you know, obviously they do it in sophisticated ways too. I mean, you're not going to read a study from the University of Minnesota that says funded by the Federal Reserve. You know, it's going to say funded by so and so foundation, this, that, charity, blah blah nonprofit, or yada yada yada, make America great again. It'll be something like that. But I mean, in all reality, you know, like Scruffface, the greatest governor of Minnesota, he always just said follow the money, and that'll generally lead you to your answer. You know, one way that evil can stick together well and efficiently is money. Yeah, you get the really evil people that just want to go kill people and whatnot, and generally not a lot of people want to do that or want to get engaged with that behavior. But a lot of people like making money, so you can even convince a good person to go astray with the allure of profit and monetary and materialistic gains. So I mean, that's usually the most efficient way that bad ideas can perpetuate. When you got the Federal Reserve and just bad people convincing good people to do bad things through coercive means and monetary gains, of course. Yeah, I mean, that's not to say that, you know, you just should live off the land and not contribute to society and not have any money, because then, you know, you're kind of a burden to the other people. And if you're using all public resources and not really contributing at all, then you're more or less a zombie, teeth gnashing, foaming at the mouth, zoned out, eyes glazed over, you know, hair greased up, and zombie parasite. That's really not, I mean, it sounds fun to, you know, yeah, I mean, I say I'm a parasite, you know, it is slightly in jocular fat. It's more or less like an associate professor. He's not quite a professor, but, you know, he can't really say he's a professor, he's an associate professor. So, I'm not really a host, I'm still a parasite. And you know, that's just one step before getting promoted to host, which someday hopefully it'll happen. You know, a couple of the records that I have so far on YouTube, highest content to viewer ratio. Usually that's not the type of accolade that will get you admittance into a promotion to a host of a show. So it appears that as far as the near future goes, I'll likely continue to be a parasite. Maybe not necessarily a zombie parasite, but just a parasite in general. And once Good Times Balls Deep hits, and the host of that show will provide a very good example of what a host does and acts, and how they set up their studio and their sound editing equipment. Like for example, they won't have a fridge in the background. They'll have the proper equipment in place to eradicate those sounds and to muddy them out and to hide them. And now, ladies and gentlemen, you know, I have been harping on getting sponsors for the show and possibly having superior audio equipment, maybe video equipment too. So, yeah, someday I might buy a microphone for the external input on the insanely expensive camera. Because this insanely expensive camera does have an external microphone input, but I've just never bothered to use it. Well, I tried to use it once, but it had this really sort of a scratchy sound on it. Now I don't know if I was supposed to meet the impedance of the microphone and the camera, or select some options, or what I was supposed to. I probably was, but just didn't pay enough attention. So hopefully with the proper sponsorship in place, hopefully things will slow down in the near future too. I mean, this is kind of a, I mean, if for example today, you know, I had to mow the lawn for 4 hours, and it was sunny out. If it was raining, yeah, I'd probably have to mow the lawn a few days later, and then it would be about a foot long, so it would take twice as long. But yeah, I mean, then you got to water plants too, because if you plant new plants and they don't get enough water, they probably will wither and die rather quickly. Now, older plants are a bit more resilient because their roots are deeper, they're more spread out, so they're hunting for moisture. But when you get new plants, they're just babies. They don't find water as easily because their roots aren't spread out. And some of the roots might only be confined to the dirt that you planted them with, which isn't very much. It's probably a little 1 inch by 1 inch box that goes down 4 or 5 inches or whatever. So it's not, it's not a whole lot of room there to operate with. A lot of times when you buy these starter plants, the roots will be twisted around the dirt. They're searching for moisture, but they can't find it because all they can do is grow around plastic. So that's why it's nice to get them into the garden as soon as possible, or into a bigger pot. If you have indoor plants, it's always a good idea to, when you buy them, to move them into a bigger pot and use proper potting soil too. Try to get organic stuff and everything else like that. That'll make a big difference. Apparently, potting soil is good because it'll cut down on mold and any other weird spores or fungus that may be found in outside dirt. So that's why people prefer potting soil, ladies and gentlemen. Alright, it looks like we're coming up to a break pretty quick here. We're going to have a show in the near future called Good Times Balls Deep. The host he's been satisfying sponsorships for a little while now, so he probably will start accumulating the necessary funds to run a top-notch show that'll make St. Cloud great again. It'll probably make Elk River great again too, to some extent. But it'll probably mostly be focused on making St. Cloud great again, because it's nice just to have regional talk shows rather than just, a couple national ones. Because once you get a few national talk shows that sort of take over and everybody just is fed the talking points, so when you talk to somebody in public, if you had a more well-known, renowned local talk show host for St. Cloud and for Elk River and for Fargo and Dalbo and Darfur, Minnesota and Worthliston and Newfoundland, then people could have more concise talking points to refer to. Like when when older people are talking to me about news and everything, so some company in Pakistan funded a study that said the greatest president of all time paid off a prostitute. It's just, I really have absolutely no idea what they're talking about. And I'm not the smartest guy in the first place, so when you combine being sort of a nitwit with ignorance and lack of familiarization, it's basically a recipe for very awkward conversations. But if we had more renowned local heroes and talk shows, then, like for example, my friend that his dad used to do a public access show, and it was the top rated show on the public access channel, and yeah, it beat out a lot of national shows too. But like I said before, he just got sick of being accosted all the time on anywhere he'd go. People always wanted to talk to him and slap him on the back and things like that. So he didn't want to put it on digital either, because I'm guessing with the national exposure, he was just worried that basically anywhere he goes, he's going to get accosted, guaranteed. Not just around St. Cloud and Elk River, but pretty much anywhere. Seattle, LA, Newfoundland. So for him, it was just a matter of convenience to put a plug on this, just to not put it on digital platform. And I've had problems too. People don't like being on the World Wide Web with their face on it. They just don't like it. Me, I could care less. If anyone is entertained by my presence, then it's totally worth it for me, even if it's at the at this point in life, I don't even know if there is anything I could get embarrassed about. Maybe, but it's hard to say at this point. You just try to live life in the fast lane and just try to be a good person and try to make everybody around you great again and happier and encourage their success and all that stuff too. And if people are really enjoying what they're doing, definitely encourage them rather than just trying to trash their ideas, because probably about 90% of the people I know are fairly, yeah, I mean, they seem like they're pretty successful and satisfied and all that stuff too. So I mean, it's just great to have people that know the direction of their life. People that are great again, in a way, it's symbiotic too. I mean, if you encourage people to be great again, they'll probably encourage you to be great, even if it's something as ridiculous as a talk show that nobody watches. I mean, if people know that you enjoy doing it, they will encourage you and advocate for it and maybe unconsciously just support the idea. But I mean, if it's stupid too, just honesty is the best form of support. I mean, if I'm pumping out the worst talk show in the history of YouTube, it's probably a good sign that something should change. Now, as far as what that is, the honest is completely on me to figure it out. Maybe I will someday, maybe with better sponsor, or the sponsor I got now is pretty good. So with the proper funding, maybe a microphone would make a big difference, and probably some air conditioning in here too. It's definitely a little hot, but alright, we're going to take a little breather here. Probably about time to close the chicken coop door. So, we'll be back in 5 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Tex Messages, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the parasite of the show, Rick Tex. Glad to be here once again. It's Thursday evening. Yeah, this is probably the longest time between shows because normally we film on Thursday morning, but now that we have sponsor obligations, we're going to film probably Tuesday and Thursday evening, along with probably Saturday and Sunday as well. That's what we've been doing, probably what we're going to be doing, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, we'll just keep running on 8 cylinders. Balls to the wall, hammer down, pedal to the metal, going all out. And as our 38th episode, at least I think it is. If it's not, we'll just rearrange the numbers to make sure it's not fake news. So, yeah, it's a pretty busy time of the year. You don't know if it's going to rain or not, so you got to set up your irrigation and all that junk. What I found though is what works excellent. You get these 250-gallon rain barrels. If you set them up right underneath your rain gutters, 250 gallons of water is a lot. You know, it's a big number. If you lived to 250 years, you'd be a pretty old person. It's probably average age for one of those Galapagos tortoises, though. But for a human, it's a big number. And you know, sort of like the sponsor deal we got now. I mean, when you see our paycheck, it's a pretty big number. So hopefully that'll go towards funding stuff that'll make Elk River great again. But yeah, what I found worked great for an irrigation. You set a sump pump, because a sump pump is about 1 horsepower, and you can get an adapter that goes to a regular garden hose. And it's pretty powerful too. It shoots out a nice spray. So you can just drop one of them inside your rain barrel. Maybe make like a little door so you can keep it covered up. Just run the rain gutter. Just run it to the giant tank, and then put like an access point on the top so you can just drop the sump pump in and lift it back up if you want. Or you just leave it in there too, I guess. That works, but yeah, you can use that and then just plug it in and you should have fresh rainwater then. And your plants will like it a lot more than well water. One of the other options too, you know, if you have a shallow well pump or to pump water out of the ground, you can use that if you run out of rainwater. I'm talking if it doesn't rain for a couple days or weeks or months, then you know then you definitely need to use well water, especially if you don't have any rainwater left. It's usually a good indicator that you need to use well water when there's no rainwater, ladies and gentlemen. Now use rainwater first, because it's going to make your plants greater than well water. Rainwater has all the nutrients in it. Well water is, the nutrients are filtered out by the plants already, so it's just the garbage that's left in it. Think of it like you eat food and then you crap it out. So if you're going to eat your crap, that's basically kind of like what well water is compared to rainwater. Now, yeah, well water isn't the byproduct of, you know, plant and animal or of plant consumption or whatever you call it, but you know, it's inferior to some degree. So just keep that in mind, ladies and gentlemen. If you can use rainwater, then do so. Now, yeah, there are apparently some states or countries that ban rainwater, which yeah, it's pretty dangerous to do that. I mean, I don't see why storing rainwater would be illegal, because all of the rainwater that you do use ends up probably going back into the ground anyways. You know, even if you're using it to drink, then you're just going to urinate it out. So it's weird that it would be that would be banned anywhere. I mean, it's just one of them laws where you really have to question the common sense that goes into it. Yeah, I get some cities are big and they got a lot of people and probably got a lot of meth houses too, and they don't want people storing rainwater because they don't have any water or the city's well is dried up or whatever the case is. But sometimes it's important to depend on yourself rather than government and municipalities. It's good to have government as a backup, but to use them as your primary source of some of these things is very dangerous. Now, yeah, government water, city water, in smaller cities usually isn't that bad. It's soft, it's got the chlorine and fluorine and bleach and that dumbs down the population, but I mean, if you can filter that garbage out, but there's probably a bunch of other weird chemicals too. So yeah, maybe you are just better off with well water. Now, one of the things that I learned kind of the hard way, if you do get an RO system, make sure it's in an easy accessible location, because mine, I put it underneath the sink and it's in kind of a bad place. And the system isn't set up very well either. It's just all cheap plastic fittings. So it's one of the things where if you replace a couple of filters and the fitting is probably going to strip or it's not going to seal anymore, then you got to get new fittings, and not really sure how to order them. I mean, there probably is 123filter.com, I think it's the website. So they probably got some valuable information on there that'll make water filtering great again. But you can buy water from the store too. You never really know what's in there. Even these filters, they might be putting weird stuff in the water as well. So you never know who or what to trust nowadays. Probably better off just getting rainwater and using some gravity-fed filter that doesn't have much to it, that's easy to maintain, that looks cool and cleans the water, basically. Because rainwater, it's going to be super soft, probably going to taste great. Gonna have a nice texture to it. Well, it's soft, so, and it'll have a lot of nutrients in it that probably aren't in filtered well water. The other thing about these RO systems is they actually put nutrients back into the water. They're probably the fortified nutrients that aren't bioavailable to humans. You always got that thing going on. So definitely keep that in mind too, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, if you can get rainwater, that's ideal. Of course, most of the rainwater is, hitting the roof, and it's probably got shingles and all that other weird stuff in it, so that's why you need to filter that out. What I've noticed too, a lot of the rainwater that I'm getting, sort of a shade of yellow. Like it looks like maybe somebody urinated in it, but obviously nobody did. But that's just a warning to you that it will look a little different than normal water. The water you're used to seeing that's just nice and clear and concise and cogent and all that too. So we're going to get into another research article here. I think this was on naturalnews.com. But it basically says plants that are starved for energy will self-cannibalize by breaking down cells. See, plants actually get their energy from the sun. Apparently there's no energy in water, so it's just, water is like, the essence of life of everything. Humans are 70% water, plants are probably a high percentage of water. So water just is living creatures, which is why it's weird that all cell phones use the frequency that resonates water. Same with the microwaves. I mean, it's pretty scary too. See, cell phones are going to be, maybe I've alluded to this in a previous show, but cell phones sounds like they're going to be the cigarettes of the 21st century. I mean, once somebody brought that up to me, it kind of flipped a switch off into my head that I don't really need to bring my cell phone with everywhere I go. I mean, if I'm driving to downtown Elk River and back, I don't need to bring my cell phone. I can just leave it home and not mess with it. Leave it off in a room far away so that the weird receptor waves or the waves that bounce back and forth between the towers don't pulsate through the residence here. Now, yeah, I mean, do you need to be paranoid about all this stuff? Probably not, but it has a bit of the placebo effect going on, because not having a phone with is really not a big deal. I mean, if people in the 30s didn't need to know what their friends were up to at the very minute, we certainly don't need to today. So, I mean, it's just one of them things where, yeah, it seems like it grows on you and you're attached to it, but ultimately you don't really need it with you at all times. Oh yeah, it's probably nice in emergency, but you got to keep in mind, even if everybody was aware of the dangers of cell phones, there'd probably still be about at least 1 in 4 people that would have one. So if something bad happens to you, then you just hope somebody stops and has a cell phone, more or less. And you can probably even shut your phone off and just bring it everywhere too. But I mean, you never know if there's some inherent capacitance within it that's maybe working while you're unaware that it's working. There's always those coercive instances that can occur. But getting back to the plants, normally they get the energy from photosynthesis. It occurs in chloroplasts, intercellular compartments found in green organs like leaves. Yeah, I mean, leaves are, in the middle of the Roy-G Biv, right in the middle of that wavelength, so, yeah, I don't know if they can absorb every single wavelength from the sun or what, but they're probably a lot more efficient than solar panels. That's basically all a tree is, just a giant solar collector. It sucks in all the energy and then it grows to some big, massive structure. And then we use the wood for houses and arcs and all that other good fun stuff. So autophagy is the process that destroys a cell to create a new one. Now yeah, humans break down cells and rebuild them and regenerate them, like when you're exercising. You break down cells and you rebuild new ones. That's basically the whole idea behind strength training. Now you got to make sure you're following every step wisely though. I mean, if you don't break down cells and you try to rebuild new ones, it's just not going to happen. I.e., if you're sitting around all day or watching TV or driving 3 hours to and from work, and if you break down your muscles too much and don't build them back up, then it's kind of pointless to waste all that energy in the first place. No, yeah, there might, usually, not always, but usually when you put in hard work, you always get out what you put into it. But you gotta be smart about it too. Like, you can't just spend 3 hours a day practicing for swimming and expect to make the Olympics. You need to be realistic too about your goals, especially. You're not going to be the best of the best. There's this at everything. There's physiological limitations. Everybody is created for their own unique strength or skill set. Like me, I probably don't even have a skill set, but if I was born to one, it would be readily apparent, and it'd probably be a lot easier to stay motivated to achieve the objectives related to that. Well, that being said, we're going to have to go to a break pretty quick here, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to have good times, balls deep in the near future. Hopefully before episode 100 of Tex Messages. And yeah, the host is really pumped. He's going to get some other co-hosts and guests and all that. So, yeah, it should be a great show. We'll be back in 5 minutes.
Someone must win. Only the
Welcome back to Tex Messages, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the parasite of the show, Rick Tex. We're glad to have you here once again. It's Thursday evening. We're in Elk River, Minnesota. It's about 90, probably, right now it's probably 80 something outside. There's no air conditioner in here either, so a little hot in here as well. Try to keep the shades down during the day to, keep out the sun. That cools it off a little bit, and then usually a fan in the window overnight does the trick. That'll definitely cool it off some. Usually 5 in the morning, I got a sweater on, and then by 8 o'clock then it's already really hot out, so yeah, not having air conditioning, it saves a little money and everything. But one of the things that you need to watch out for, if you have a toilet, when the water comes in from the ground, the water is probably only going to be about 60 degrees. So if it's the point of condensation, I forget what it is, but it's somewhere between 20 and 30 degrees. So if it's 90 degrees in your bathroom and it's 60 outside and there's water coming up, it's going to condense and it's going to pool up and it's going to fall on the floor. Now, if you just got one of those weird vinyl or plastic floors that the water's not able to penetrate and it doesn't pool up enough to go into the wall, then you should be good. But if you got any type of items that are susceptible to water damage, then you should bear that in mind, ladies and gentlemen. Some of the more expensive, one of the fancy things about some expensive toilets is that they have insulated tanks. So that allows the temperature change to happen more slowly, gradually, so then it won't condense as bad. That's kind of a nice perk to have then. And but they are more expensive. And if you want, maybe you can wrap some pillows around it yourself if you really want to, but it's not a big deal. It's like after you take a shower, it's just a good idea to wipe down the shower and get all the water off right away, especially if you got hard water. City water, even if you got city water, it's a good idea to do it. It's just a nice habit to establish, ladies and gentlemen. Plus, you're going to have to wait for yourself to dry off too, so you may as well just dry off the bathtub and the shower in the meantime. Out here, if if you have somebody that doesn't do that, then if you got like caulking or anything like that, it may get moldy if you didn't use the proper type. But usually, if you buy caulking, you get like the kitchen and bath, and then that'll not get moldy. So that's a pretty smart thing to do. Now you might think, well, I'll just get straight silicone. Why not? It's cheaper. Menards has the mail-in rebate where I can get it for free. Everyone wants something free. So why not just do that? But if it's in a watery environment or it's outdoors, then it will get moldy, and you certainly do not want that. Some of it may not be flexible too. If you're sealing up windows or anything outside with widely varying temperatures, it's a good idea to get something that's flexible. So you always want to read the package, because if you go to Menards and you look in the caulking or silicone section, there's dozens of available types of formulas. So just try to get the one that you feel fits your application most. If you're putting some silicone behind, if you put in some counters in your kitchen, and there's a little bit of space between the wall and the counters backstop, then get kitchen and bath silicone. If it's going to be close to a sink, with sources of water. Well, if you're if you just want to glue something to the wall, you could probably get away with just silicone. I don't know how long it'll last, but most likely it'll work. And if you're looking to have larger breasts, you're probably better off just getting the silicone bags. I don't know how they do it. They cut a knife in and stick a bag in there, but yeah, I mean, that just seems completely absurd that anyone would resort to that tactic it's like makeup is bad enough, but to actually like hack up yourself and stick random garbage inside your body is just next level. I don't even know what to call it. Just pure silliness, basically. But getting back to the caulking, yeah, it's just important to find the right application for your job. And pretty much anybody that owns their own house and does home maintenance or works in a garage will come across silicone or caulking, gasket material, that kind of thing. Now, say for example you're getting some gasket maker for your car. I mean, for example, there was an oil pan gasket that I needed for one of my old cars. There was 2 corners of the oil pan that had a little bit of a crack in it from, it was an intended crack, not incidental or not accidental, or the car wasn't broken. So I had to put a dab of silicone in that, and that was, the high temp silicone, because, it's on an engine. Engines get hot. So, it's copper gasket, high temp. Apparently they add some copper to it, and then it makes it higher temperature, I guess. So just doing basic stuff like that helps out a lot. Paying attention to things of that nature. It kind of goes back to common sense, too. Alright, I'm going to get into a research article here. 220 cases of nightmare bacteria with antibiotic-resistant genes in 27 states. So this was pretty... Was it? Oh, sorry. Apparently I already tackled that topic in a previous show. Already today, I guess. Alright, 7 things your hand says about health. Alright, thing number 1, if you have an underactive thyroid, you could have cold hands and swollen fingers is a possible sign of an underactive thyroid. Thyroid is in your neck, and the thyroid has the halogen receptors on it. Chlorine, fluorine, bromine, iodine. You usually just want iodine on it. And iodine will kick off those other garbage halogens, but for example, in the bread there's bromine, in the water there's chlorine and fluorine, and in pool water there's a lot of chlorine. So there's a lot of sources of that other junk, those junk halogens. So just make sure you're getting good iodine. That'll help out your thyroid a lot. And cold hands and swollen fingers. See, sometimes when you read stuff like this, you have to understand that not everybody's lived in a cold climate. And when I say cold climate, I mean it gets to 20 degrees below zero Fahrenheit. Not Celsius, Fahrenheit. So when you go outside, your hands are going to get pretty cold if you don't have gloves on. If you got a sweater on, a long sleeve, insulated coveralls, and big gloves, then you're probably going to be fine. But if you're not prepared, you can expect a lot of trouble. And the thing with the body is, if you ever have gotten frostbite, I mean, I might have a minor case of frostbite on some of my toes here. Like for example, one of the toes looks like it holds blood. On the very tip of it, it looks like it holds blood a little bit longer than the other ones. But what the body does when you do get frostbite is it transfers all. It wants to keep the heart, your organs, and all that stuff warm, because if your heart gets frostbite, you die. If your hands get frostbite, you just lose your hands and you still survive. So if you go outside and it's cold out and your hands get cold, it's not an underactive thyroid. It's cold outside, and your body it centralizes all the heat, so all the cold gets pushed out to your hands and feet and toes, and your nose gets really cold. Alright, overactive thyroid, if you have reddened skin or dry skin, Now, like me, I don't really have very good water softener, so I have a lot of dry skin and dandruff and all that stuff. I mean, is it a sign of a thyroid overact? Maybe, but you also fix the things you know first, and then you can go after all these weird, elaborate health scares if you so feel the need to. Alright, if your fingernails break easily, could be a sign of low vitamin A, C, calcium, and biotin. There's also another word on here too, I'm not really remembering what it was though. But yeah, I mean, just making sure you're a healthy person and all that stuff too. And then you should be good. I really have no idea what that word is. Alright, hyperhidrosis. You got sweaty palms. You know, like right now, it's pretty hot in here, but my palms aren't sweaty. No, if my palms were sweaty right now, maybe there'd be a sign of trouble to come, but more than likely it's probably just a high temperature. So your grip strength reveals how healthy your heart is. Now, I suppose that seems reasonably plausible. I mean, grip strength is based on forearm strength. See, if you work hard all day and you don't really eat that many calories, you're not really going to grow into a large person just because you don't eat enough calories. But things like your hand strength will be significant because it doesn't require a lot of resources from your body to build hand strength. Now, it does require resources from your body to build big legs and arms and things of that nature. But to build hand strength, it doesn't really require that much. That's why, you hear old man strength, Some old guy shakes your hand and it feels like he's going to snap it off, but he looks like some skinny twig. It's because, if you work hard, you don't need a lot of calories. I mean, your grip strength will stay pretty strong, but you're just not going to grow big leg muscles and all that goofy stuff too. One of the obvious ones is Parkinson's. Like Muhammad Ali or Cassius Clay has got that, or he had that. If you're shaking your hand at rest. Pale hands, fingernails, could be anemia, low levels of red blood cells. And eczema, constant itch rashes. Yeah, I mean, when I was out in the sun for a while, a couple weeks ago, I got this, it was kind of a rash on the back of my hand, but it went away after a while. There was one time, a few years back, I had some giant rash. It lasted for about 2 days, maybe a day or two. Yeah, just some giant rash that covered the whole body. I thought I should get a picture of it because, it looked like some evil monster or whatever the case is. So it would have made a great profile picture for, Facebook, or maybe back in those days it was MySpace, but great profile pic nonetheless. So missed opportunity there, but you can't win them all, Oh yeah, those are 7 things your hand says about your health. No. Yeah, I mean, if you spend a lot of time on the computer, nowadays keyboards are, unless you work with a keyboard, it seems that they're becoming more obsolete as people are shifting towards using their phones for just online entertainment. Video gamers, yeah, they're still using the desktop computers, and if you're at work, you still probably have computers as well. But for everybody else that just wants to laugh and smile and engage in fun and games, they don't have to mess with that. They're more worried, they're probably more prone to tech neck or cancer from the 5G and networks pulsating through their hands and everything too. That's another thing too. If you're going to talk on your cell phone a lot, it's a good idea to have a headset. Because I had this for some reason I just got this electromagnetic book and read all about it. And this book was probably made in a long time ago, like 90s or 2000s. And cell phones haven't gotten any more safe since then, but they had an electromagnetic pattern. Like within a foot of the phone, it's a significant amount of power, then it drops off a lot from that. So if you got the phone right here by your face, then you're getting like the brunt of the electromagnetic radiation in your brain and inside your skull. Now your skull does attenuate some electromagnetic radiation, but it's best just to avoid it. It's like, if you eat bad food, your body will filter out most of it, but then you get diarrhea and vomit, so just good idea to avoid that. So that being said, we're coming to the conclusion of the show. Oh yeah, it was a very busy day, ladies and gentlemen. Glad to have it over with. A little dehydrated, a little warm, but now we made it to the end here. Hopefully we can make it to probably episode 100. If I get to episode 100 by the end of the summer, then Elk River likely still won't be great yet, but hopefully it'll be on the path. And as far as having the highest content to viewers, we're on pace for that. So that's a good sign. That's a goal I take a lot of pride in, and I'm very serious about accomplishing. And Good Times, Balls Deep, we're gonna have that in the near future as well. Pretty excited about that. We might film more evening shows here because it's cooler outside, and I don't really want to spend money on air conditioning, even though we do have good sponsors for the show. Probably rather just spend it on getting a microphone or something. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I think we've reached the ending of the show, and glad to have you here once again. We should be back. Well, yeah, we should be back Saturday or Sunday. But today's show, I'm gonna have to upload it Friday. Today, probably just going to go to sleep right after this. Not bother with any computer. If you look at a computer too late at night, then you stay up too late, so I'm just going to avoid that. And yeah, thanks for listening, ladies and gentlemen. On the parasite of the show, Rick Tex, glad to have you here, as always. And we salute you, the viewers, or listeners, if you're just podcasting or downloading from... You can download on YouTube, just select MP3, then it won't really take up that much information. That's probably what I would do.